What's up, everybody? Welcome to Love Music More. I am joined with Benjamin Davis. I am Scuba Dubert. What's up, Benjamin? How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's an early morning. Just going for my normal morning walk.
So, do people walk in LA? That's what the people want to know. There's that song. You're proving it.
People. LA is like a bunch of little villages, and within the villages, people walk around. And then if you need to go to another village, that's when you have to drive, or motorcycle for me.
Cool. Sweet.
Because I don't have a car.
Hey, well, motorcycle works. Better gas mileage and all that stuff, too.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
But it's a little scary sometimes.
For sure. So you're in Hollywood right now? I would love to kind of hear what brought you to Hollywood. You're a multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, arranger, composer, record producer. Makes sense to be in Hollywood, but what brought you here?
So I have been in New York since 2009 in Bushwick.
Cool. Love Bushwick.
And I have a special situation there in a loft that I still have the apartment.
Cool.
And so it's kind of like an easy flow to transition here. A lot of people have to be like, I'm moving to another city.
Yeah, right.
Like, and then they're like, I gotta take all my stuff and be like,
drive
so
across
for me,
the
it's
country.
Like, yeah. Well, I did that eventually. We'll get there. For me, it was a little more like, I lived in New York, and then I felt more bi-coastal.
Cool. Love it.
And now I'm definitely LA, and like I just have this little rehearsal space pad,
awesome
crash pad in New York. That kind of is like, it's still kind of it's like a time capsule from when I was like 23.
Cool.
And like moved, it's like still exactly. It's like when I go there, it's like my old life is like still there.
That's nuts. So it's like just waiting for you. I love it. Do you feel like that inspires different things creatively to like have the bicoastal thing go, and you have got the time capsule? Do you think do you create differently in the two spaces now?
I like, just for the record, I live here now. Yeah. So it's like that. I was bicoastal for a little bit in between.
Cool.
Now when I'm there, I'm visiting.
Nice.
Very much.
Got you.
So,
yeah.
So I don't know, just the distinction.
Yeah. That's important.
But yeah, I guess anywhere you go, you're kind of influenced by the surroundings, and there's in Bushwick, there's a purple piano.
Cool.
A Baldwin.
Cool.
And that's very different from like the Yamaha U1 that's at my studio.
Right.
So that, like, for me, it's like when you pick up an instrument, at least when you're writing, I feel like all the instruments, even like computer instruments, have like a soul.
Cool.
And like they each like want you to write like a different, like they each like are trying to make you write a different song.
Yes.
So in that way, when I'm over there, I'm like exposed to different instruments, except for the instruments that I bring.
Right. That's cool. Do you feel like that that energy is static in the instrument? Like I always kind of gravitate towards this when I'm working with this instrument, or does that instrument's kind of soul evolve over time too?
I think probably evolves. I mean, maybe it's more like we evolve.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course there's like setups.
Yes, of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can switch out pickups, or you can do these things that you actually are changing the nature of the instrument. Yeah.
Right. And then, it's a good question. I don't have like a.
Yeah.
I guess if we're changing and the instrument's staying the same, or if the instrument's changing, wherever you're in a different place, and you never step in the same river twice.
Yes. Yes.
So it's always different, but I just mean like in the moment that you pick up an instrument, I feel like its energy is like telling you to write something or play something on it.
Yep.
And like, I feel like it's like Billy Madison, like when the golf, like, like play it as it lies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when you like hit the golf ball, like if you hit the golf ball in the woods and it's like, you got to like play it there or something. I don't play golf. So I don't know if that's a real thing or just in Billy Madison, but like, I feel like sometimes an instrument have strengths, and every instrument has like a strength and a weakness.
Yeah, I agree.
And so at least when you're like recording, you might have like some guitars that are good at this thing, and some guitars that are good at that thing. Some guitars that are like out of tune in certain places.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it's like a bad instrument.
Yes.
I also believe like, as far as like the instruments having soul, like I don't like to talk shit about instruments in their presence.
Yes. I like that.
Because I think they're listening.
Yes.
In some ways, I don't know.
No, I think there's a lot of value in that kind of thinking, even if people are like, oh, whatever, this is so esoteric or whatever. But I think that there's a lot of value because you're showing these instruments respect. You're opening up that line of communication between you and the thing that you're playing, rather than just looking at it as a thing, an inanimate object that you're just doing everything. I think it's like almost more humble.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And just like, like I have this one like Supro guitar from the 50s.
Sweet.
In my studio.
Awesome.
And it's like so low endy.
Yeah.
That like the bottom strings will like just like make the amp like you can't play it through an amp, but you can if you're playing like the upper register.
Ah, cool. Okay.
It's just like
it's a great example.
So it's like that's an example of like an instrument that you play the high end and it works out, and you play like the low end and you're like, you're cool for something, but right now I can't play you, otherwise it won't work.
Yes. But yeah, that's so true, because you're like kind of almost like taking away a creative choice, then it opens up another one. It's like close a door, open a window kind of thing.
And sometimes like, I get people in there that are like, they're just like kind of play whatever they're like, this is guitar, and they play it and they're like, oh, this is bad because I can't play like my normal part. And I'm like, cool, but like that instrument wants you to play something else.
Yeah.
Like that instrument doesn't, you're not allowed to play the low stuff with this, like through this amp, or, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know.
No, totally.
Not like, not that those people are bad people. They're just, that it's and maybe for those people you just switch guitars and everything goes great.
Yeah, you roll with it, but like some people, like I think a really good example too is with drummers, like how different drummers play depending on how big of a drum kit you give them. Like the more toys or less toys, it really changes their mentality.
Totally. Yeah. When I like first moved to New York, I was playing a lot of like gigs on electric and upright bass.
Cool.
And I somehow came up with like, I feel like a lot of people that I respect like say these really like drastic things.
Okay.
Especially young people. That they don't necessarily like, or some older people, but like they're kind of like blanket statements that aren't really maybe even true to them, but they're just like say it to like represent something.
Yeah.
And I was like not into cymbals.
Cool. Yeah.
So I would say stuff like, I'm not into any music that has ride cymbal in it.
Cool.
And one time I was playing a gig at Barbez, and I like in the middle of a song, the drummer was playing ride cymbal, took the cymbal off and put it on the floor. Anyway, forgive me. It's okay.
That's so extreme. I love it.
But you know, I think ride cymbal has its place. But
yes,
sometimes it's like I've been doing some of these recording sessions with drummers where it's not like I'm getting them to play over a specific song.
Okay.
Like I'm just having them in to like be them and play random shit.
Yeah.
And then I'll like take it and stretch it out and put it on whatever I want or use it to write or whatever. And definitely like, you know, I usually don't want them to play the cymbals partly because it's like much easier to like edit.
Totally.
If everything's like short.
I agree. And I also think that with cymbals, you can do that thing with other instruments. You can add that top end energy and that excitement in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And if you just play a cymbal, now it's kind of taken up that whole space and it's cut off that access to like be like, oh, let's use a synth or a guitar or like an electronic cymbal or whatever, some noise filter stuff to fill that same role.
Totally. And sometimes, you know, I'll be like, oh fuck, this song needs, you know, someone playing ride cymbal.
For sure.
And then I'll be like, my old self, my 23-year-old self is like rolling over in his grave. I don't know. How do you say that about an old self? Like, you know, I guess people say that about dead people, but
yeah. Well, have you heard of the ship of Theseus? The idea of like, okay, so if you have this big ship and then over time you replace every single part of that ship, but it's over time, is it still the same ship?
Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, that's funny because, you know, back to the instruments thing.
Yes.
Sorry if it's loud. I'm crossing a road.
You're good.
Went back to the instrument thing. Like I just had a baby.
Oh, congratulations.
And kind of at the same time got the studio.
Cool.
And baby, she likes it when I play music for her.
Aw.
And so, you know, but the house is pretty small. So like, you know, all my instruments are at the studio. So I usually just keep one of them at the house at a time. And I'm, you know, commuting with my motorcycle. So it's not as fun to bring them back and forth a lot.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So, you know, I'll like find like, I'm like, oh, the baby doesn't need like the nicest instrument.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, you know, I want to have my A game at the studio. And so I guess I kind of like, I bring like the least good instrument home, but then I'm like, oh, this isn't fun. I'm going to get it set up.
Cool.
And then I get it set up and then I end up playing it a lot because it's at home.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, fuck, it's got to go to the studio.
Yes. Cycle.
So it's like, you know, I don't know. It's not all the parts being replaced, but it's like, you know, once you get it set up, you're kind of like, you can see what the instrument can actually do.
Yes. And also that familiarity. I feel like, I don't know if this is just me, but sometimes I feel like my instruments get cranky with me if I don't play them for a while. Like if there's like one guitar that's in the back of the closet and I break it out, it's all stiff and weird. And it takes like another like few days for it to reacquaint itself with me.
Right.
A cat or something.
Maybe, it's you.
Yeah, maybe it's me, man. Yeah, totally. Maybe it's a metaphor, like dusting myself off.
Right. Well, your relation. Yeah, I guess it's like your relationship with that instrument.
Right.
Exactly. Should I turn this way?
Oh, that's better. That's like, I like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I get some.
See what
some more background. Exactly. See what's good with LA.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on. One question is like,
please.
How long is this thing supposed to go?
It's pretty much, it's flexible. Anywhere between, you know, half hour to an hour is usually where we hit these episodes.
Okay.
So yeah. It's really
how
however
what do we got
long
so far?
however
I'm
long
not in a rush.
your shoulder feels.
I'm more like I'm more concerned with going over than going under. And I want there's like at least one thing I want to make sure to talk about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there's no reason to hold back. I would love to talk about the single that you've got coming up. I feel like this is as good a time as any.
Do you edit these, or is it?
It's usually just free flowing. It's just like, being a fly on the wall of a conversation between two musicians is kind of the path.
Unless you're like don't cut that out.
Exactly.
I didn't want people to know I said that about that, and the Supra won't like it.
You're right.
If it hears about the low end. Oh yeah, the single.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Monica Martin's awesome also, by the way. I mean, I remember like Fox, what was it, 2014, 2015, like being super into that band and be like, this vocalist is insane. So super cool that you were working with her as a feature as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think it's coming out on Friday. I'm pretty sure it is. We'll find out. But I guess that's a week from today.
Yeah, a week from today, and then this podcast is going to come out on Tuesday, so the week of the podcast being released.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
So it's actually like kind of a collaboration with two old friends.
Cool.
Because you talk about Monica, and she, I have this band called Cuddle Magic.
Yeah.
That is like an East Coast situation. We actually just finished mixing a new record that we recorded in a bathroom, but we're
in a bathroom.
We're still like we don't know when it's
I can't let that just go by. Released. I can't just let that go by. What do you mean by in a bathroom?
Well, it's the second record we've recorded in a bathroom, but it's like 6 musicians doing everything live in a bathroom.
Awesome.
With like 24 mics or
awesome.
So
cool.
And live vocals and everything. There's 4 singers.
Yes.
Bass, clarinet, trumpet. The quietest trumpet player.
Yeah, right.
Cole came in green.
That is so cool. What a challenge. Not to blow everybody's ears out.
No. Yeah. Like it's like the bass clarinet's too loud. You got to like put a mute in it.
Cool.
Like
yes.
It's like the quietest band.
I love it.
But we actually have a show in LA on February 22nd.
February 22nd. Love to come.
Yeah. But so when Cuddle Magic, like a long time, I don't know exactly when it was, but Fox used to live together in Wisconsin.
Cool.
And they were Cuddle Magic fans.
Cool.
And we were doing very DIY touring.
Yeah.
I don't actually remember like how long it was. Like Cuddle Magic's been a band for like 15 years.
Wow.
So sometime in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And they all used to live together.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually had like a video blog that they did that they shot in the house. That like they have bands crash there, and then they'd like wake up in the morning before the band had to go to the next place and like film like a video blog of the band playing a song.
Awesome.
So I met Monica back then when she was in Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other old friend that worked on the song is Meg Duffy of Hand Habits. And I met them when because I'm from Saratoga Springs, New York, which I know Luke Molman.
I do.
Right?
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah.
He's great.
He mixed the track.
Awesome.
Meg, Cuddle Magic played a show in Albany.
Cool.
Because they were living in the 518 area code.
Yeah.
And it's from there. And so we somehow realized that we both lived in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I've only been here for like 3 or 4 years. So sometime in that. I'm bad with exact dates. But
okay.
They came over and we wrote the song. And they kind of had the first verse, and then we kind of created the rest of the song from there. And then it just wasn't sitting well. It was going to maybe be Meg singing,
Okay.
and something about it like just wasn't working right. And then Monica came over.
Yeah.
This is when my studio was just in my house in Hollywood.
Cool.
I mean, it was just in the living room.
Yes.
Before the baby. And I just was pulling random shit up for Monica to sing over.
Cool.
Like mostly harmony vocals. And then I was like, oh, let's try this song.
Yeah.
And me and Meg both agreed that Monica was the right voice for the song.
Yes.
She really like sold it.
Love it.
And
So
Meg
good.
said she really did the song justice.
Cool. Yeah.
Of Monica. And yeah. And so that's I'm releasing it as a BLD track.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very much a collaboration, which I think just represents, me well to be releasing stuff as me, but it might be kind of written with other people and sung by other people and whatever. I feel like, I don't know, people are doing that these days.
I agree. I love it. It feels more like community records, like you're tapped into a scene or you're tapped into a friend group when you're hearing these things. I feel like you feel that energy as a listener.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm excited to share that.
Yeah, I can't wait.
And
pre-saved.
Do you have like links under the
I'll put some links in here.
Thing?
Yeah,
okay,
we'll put
so
the pre-save link.
There's a pre-save link up on there. Everyone check that out.
I did it.
I'm so excited about both those humans. And there's Eric Lane played Prophet on it.
Cool.
And and then Elise Levy sang backgrounds on the second verse.
Awesome.
Me and Meg sing on the choruses. And who else plays on it? I think that's it.
Great.
Something like that.
I love it.
Oh, and Joe Lambert, Luke Molman mixed it, and Joe Lambert mastered it.
Awesome.
But yeah, check it out, everybody.
I'm curious, where I always like asking producers, arrangers, especially when it's like your own project. When do you feel like it's done? Like, do you have like a moment of like revelation of like, don't touch it anymore, we're good, send it to mix? Or is it more of like a fluid process? Like how do you cross through that threshold?
Well, I guess every situation is different.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you mentioned like your own project, but that's kind of in some ways the hardest.
I agree. Yep.
Because you're fully in control.
Mm-hmm.
When it's for someone else, it's like a little bit more kind of, you can get help.
Yeah.
From somebody, you can kind of decide that, their opinion is more important than yours, or, and
you
or
have
like
that committee,
if you're dealing with like a really decisive person, that's easy.
Yeah.
And if you're dealing with a really indecisive person, then sometimes you have to kind of like the act of like having to convince them that it's done, not like for their own good.
Yeah.
Like also somehow makes it easier because you're like, you have to like put on your confident face and be like, this is great, it's done. Let's But in some ways, I think, especially like, I haven't done too much like mixing where I'm like, this is done, where I'm like, this is done in some ways.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with like a mixer like Luke, or John Lowe, who's like someone else I've been working with. Both of those people are also like producers, and I remember I sent some like songs over to John to mix, And one of the songs I was like, I don't remember that last verse having a Nashville guitar on it.
No way.
And like, he must have been like going through the song was like, this last verse needs something in this frequency. And then instead of like trying to find that with instruments that was there, he like added something new, and it was great.
Yeah.
It was just like funny to get like a version back and be like, did we do that?
Yes.
And that actually kind of opened up a kind of can, not necessarily of worms.
Something better than
I don't
worms.
know,
Like Pringles.
something better than like I don't know, maybe better than Pringles.
What's better than Pringles?
I guess the people like what's the best thing in a can?
Best thing in a can, whoop ass.
Okay, yeah, a can of whoop ass, exactly. like when John did that, and knowing like all the different hats that Luke has, because I work with Luke probably the most.
Cool. Good choice. He's great.
And he does lots of producing. Yeah, we went to ninth grade jazz band together.
Awesome. How cool.
So like, instead of thinking of like producing, mixing, mastering, even like as like these kind of, songwriting, as these like drastically separate roles, I started thinking about kind of, at least with like, I don't know, my process.
Yeah.
And sometimes not, but like, instead of using those words, like I started thinking like starters, middlers, finishers.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Okay, I feel like in talking about it, I realized the answers to the question.
Good.
I feel like I'm back to the answer.
Perfect.
The original question. So I feel like it's like when you're working with people like that, you can kind of just like take it as far as you can. And then you're like, okay, I trust this guy. I maybe I've wrapped my, maybe it doesn't need very much, or maybe it needs a lot. But this guy might like add like replace the bass with like prop, Luke, or like replace the kick drum, or like all this stuff, and to give them the freedom to do that. I think, or maybe they just do it without asking. It like kind of, I don't know. I think that's cool, especially with like if you're working with mixers that are also like producers, and kind of just think of them more as finishers. And so then when you're done with something, it's more just like, I'm done working with this thing, and you can, like you could stop like early, like like and in some ways it's like, if you get really into like the mixing part of it at the end of the thing, like that can be good because like you get more of your stank on it. Yeah. Like, if your rough mix sounds amazing, but in other ways, it's like if you can kind of, like, I remember when I recorded my first like solo record, Nothing Matters. It was like the second record that I worked on with Luke and mixing, and I recorded it on GarageBand. Yeah. I had some nice equipment, but it was like, GarageBand's great. So
it is.
Like, I don't remember exactly what my shit sounded like, but like compared to the stuff I deliver to mixers now, it was like super raw.
Totally.
And like, in some ways that can be,
been there.
If you're working with a good finisher, the question is kind of like, should your job actually be done sooner than you think? Like, should you leave it even more fucked up? Like, like, should you be like done earlier?
Yeah. Well, I think it's very similar to like hiring a musician, like you're talking adding a drummer or something like that, or adding a trumpet player, a featured vocalist, whatever. You try to leave some room for them, because you don't want to deliver them this like super dense arrangement and be like, no, just like sprinkle some stuff on it. It's like, no, I I want to give you space to create, and then maybe I'll finish it. Then I'll add some extra synths or whatever. But it's like almost that same mentality for the mixer, whatever, the people along that relay race.
Totally. Yeah. So I guess that's, in talking to you, I'm like realizing maybe you're like, you want to leave more room for if you're dealing with someone that can do it well, like, maybe I deliver stuff too finished and then like they don't have as much space to feel like they can, work like be creative.
There's another side of that though, that like I felt on some mixing client stuff where people deliver me things that I just have to like clean up. Like it's not creative work. It's like there's gnarly breaths and noise and things that just like shouldn't be in the tune. They don't add vibe. So then I feel like I'm like doing assistant engineer stuff, and then it ends up hurting my time to be like creative and free and listen to the song fresh. So I feel like there is like a equilibrium between those two kind of poles.
Yeah, but you're thinking about if you're trying to always do like the ideal thing.
Yeah.
If the producer doesn't want to do that either.
Yeah.
Then we got a third party.
Yeah. Right.
If that's maybe some intern.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff, so like, because we're kind of, me and you are discussing like, what's the best process, or
what's the
trying
ideal?
to hone that in.
Right.
Maybe there's a third, like if the producer doesn't want to do that, and the mixer doesn't want to do that, then let's find someone else. Calling all the podcast listeners, anybody that wants to take the S's and just manually turn them down.
I know, exactly. There's so much work like that.
It's cross-pay them.
Exactly. There's so much work. That's my dream, man, to have somebody like that.
Who wants to make some money?
Yeah, right. Pay them, and also I feel like you learn a lot just like being in a bunch of different material and doing the little stuff, the do's that like I still have to do, but that's not a bad gig. Well, it sounds like a bad gig, but it actually is a good gig.
Well, let's say you don't have that person.
Yeah.
What like, do you feel like that's the mixer or the producer's job?
I think it's the producer's job. I think it's the producer's job, but I do it a lot as a mixer producer, which is fine. What I do is I just put on different hats. So like I'll sit down with the thing, I'll listen to it, catch like an overall vibe, and then I'll like take a break, grab some tea or coffee or beer or whatever, go in, do all the assistant engineer stuff, leave again, and then come back and mix. Like I kind of like 3-tier it when I have to do something like that. So it doesn't like pollute me, because I can't just jump right into like cleaning stuff because I don't want to break it. Like sometimes you clean and you like sterilize,
Well, I mean, I like it. That's funny that you're like, it's the producer's job. Like, but like, part of it's just like
the engineer. It's like an assistant engineer job, really. It's like,
right. But like, if you're dealing with, like, I guess the question is like, in the end, at least for the art, like the question really should be like, who's better at it?
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that.
Because there's some subtlety to that. Like you might be better, like even though you're like, don't want to do that. Is that because it'll make a better track?
Yeah.
Or is it just because
that's a good point.
Don't want to spend you resent having to spend the time doing something boring. Because
totally.
In general, like maybe some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess the best situation would be like you do it, and then you also give them the clean track.
Yeah.
And then they're like, then the mixer could be like this one you did good.
Yes,
this one you did
that's
good. This
ideal.
One you did
that
good.
would be huge. That would be
that's like like that needs some work, and then you you go in and do it
exactly.
But in general, I might think that the mixer would be better at it.
I get you, and I like.
Do you agree?
Because I'm pretty good at it, and I get some stuff that you're right. Like it's a little. Like one of my favorite things to do is identify where in the vocal I want to mute. So like sometimes there's mic hiss that's going, and I don't want that mic hiss in some like very critical, intimate sections. Even with a really low noise floor mic, I'll be compressing, I'll be doing all these things, I'll be bringing it out. Sometimes producers will just hard chop or do like strip silence in Pro Tools, and it just doesn't have that like hand of intentionality. It's just kind of the computer is just choosing where to mute and unmute things, strip silence. And so like I'll go in super specific, and so I have been in situations where I have to copy over like hiss from other other parts so that it doesn't sound brutal, you know. So I agree. It might be a different mentality. So go for it.
Well, Oh, I was just saying that like for me, I just did my very first remix.
Cool.
Which I actually like. I took. The other thing is I've got a show on a week from Sunday. So
dang, you're playing a lot.
This is Tuesday. It's next Sunday.
Cool.
I'll be a Benjamin Lazar Davis show at Altamira Studios. So if you want, you can go to my Instagram and DM me if you want to see me play.
Word. That sounds great.
But I just did my first remix, and I did it in this way where I don't think I can tell you who it's for yet. But
cool. No worries.
But I got just the vocals.
Okay.
Like they didn't send me any other stems, but for the whole record.
Okay.
And I took like the verse from one song and the chorus from another song, and like the response vocals from another, like, you know, from another song, and then like made a verse, couple lines from the verse, the bridge.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, like how cohesive it was because the album's lyrics were so
cool, like
all about the same, like kind of all about the same, like breakup. But the song that I chose for the verse was like the one where she sang like the quietest.
Okay.
And it was very noisy.
Yeah.
But like I was putting, there were things where I needed to cut it off sometimes. And so I ended up like going on freesounds.com and like getting these like leaves sounds.
Cool.
That like, and then like side chaining it. So it was like when it cut out, there was like this other like vaguely similar noise floor that felt intentional.
Yeah.
Like that kind of like popped in, like, but it still wasn't in the whole time.
Yes.
But it was like, there was like, oh, it's coming in, it's out. Oh, it's in, like, oh, now it's like intentionally, like rhythmically coming in and out, you know, like kind of like from, so it was like, it was very much playing with that.
I love it.
Same thing you're talking about with the hiss. Anyway.
No, that's good. That ties into the other, that ties into the other stuff. I think we've been going for about 40 minutes or so. That ties in with the other stuff that you were talking about.
Okay, I'm down for longer. But...
Yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going. With the symbols and the, you know, like that conversation. I think that like I've heard it on records too with like Rain. There are all these little tricks that people can do when you have a really noisy microphone, or you're using the demo microphone that you weren't intending to use, like the demo tape, but it has so much more emotion. You're like, we got to use this one. It's crappier, but like we'll make it work. And then you can build an arrangement around something, like you're saying, side chaining in and out leaves. Like that's perfect. That's a brilliant idea to keep that same frequency kind of dancing throughout. It's nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I guess it all kind of affects. Yeah, I guess that ended up being like a changing the way that I did it. But cool. And it was funny because all the other vocals on the whole album were like very pristine.
Cool. I love that. I love that.
And I just like, but like I just chose that one.
Yes.
I don't know, something about it.
Yes.
And I was like, first I was like, why do I just know that this is the one I'm using for like all the verses. You know, like why did I have to choose this one? But like it definitely chose me, you know what I mean? But then it always just affects everything, but seems to work out.
Totally. I mean, I've done the same thing with like a remix where it's like, oh, I want to remix this song. And they're like, great, it's not to tempo. It's like, oh, all right, here we go. You snap it around and build a feel. But
totally.
You know, called to you. So you do it. I'd love to talk. I'd love to talk about kind of your relationship and your study in Africa, and kind of how you're studying awa drumming and drum ensemble music. I find that really fascinating, and I would love to hear some more about your experience, how that's influenced your musicality.
Yeah, well, I guess like my dad's a musician.
Cool.
And he lived in Malawi from 1969 to 1972.
Awesome.
And so he had a bunch of like field recordings growing up, and also like in the on the radio there, he was listening to Franco and OK Jazz.
Cool.
Which is like a Congolese guitar music. I feel like, I mean, I don't know that much about shit, but like, you know, I'm not like an expert on this, but like, you know, he's from like the 50s, 60s, like kind of guitar music. And I'm just going to say this, it's not true, but like, I think he invented the interval to six.
Cool. Awesome.
Like, it was like everything he played was six, like ding, 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 like harmonized with six, you know, with himself.
Yeah.
The entire, you know, everything I've heard him play, he did that.
Cool.
But so I kind of grew up with some of that music, just like playing around the house, and some of the music that my dad played, like in bands, was like a fusion between like fiddle music and like African music. Like he'd put foam under the guitars. This is when I was like, you know, before I was born, but like, you know, kind of doing some African-y stuff. And then I went to music school in Boston at England Conservatory, and there was all these rhythm classes. Like there would be like, you know, North Indian stuff where you'd be like, you know, or whatever. Like, and then there'd be like, you know, African music stuff where you'd like learn, and you know, and some of these guys, like the main two guys that I really, but first it was Jamie Haddad, who's a teacher there.
Cool.
He taught at a bunch of different schools over there, and so like, it was like a frame drumming class where you'd kind of do polyrhythms.
Yeah.
I think, and then eventually Jerry Leek, who I studied with for 2 years, and he was like he went to this place called Dog Bay Cultural Center, and wrote like a whole book about, which is like on the southeastern corner of Ghana, like right near Togo, which is the neighboring country. And he when I graduated, I decided to like follow in his footsteps, because at NEC you didn't have to study with like your private lessons with like someone from your instrument.
Oh, that's cool. That's really
so
cool.
I ended up like my last 2 years. It's cool if you're like, it's cool if like you end up not necessarily identifying as like a bass player,
Totally.
or, you know, like
Exactly.
that you're you know, it's helpful that they're not like, no, you bass,
Right.
do bass.
Exactly.
So shout out
that's good.
to whoever was in charge. Ken Shaphurst of the department. But so I was kind of like, this is cool stuff. And my friend Danilo and I decided to go together.
Cool.
From my first trip in 2009, right before I moved to New York.
Cool.
And right after college. And we actually went to Mali first, and then to the festival in the desert, which was one of the last years that it happened. It was literally in Timbuktu.
Wow.
Or north of Timbuktu, but
Nice.
but like in the desert. And then eventually we went to Dog Bay, which was one of the like, those were the only two like official things we had planned.
Cool.
And we went to Dog Bay for like, I think 2 weeks or something. You can like stay there and study Ewe music.
Cool. Ewe music.
And that was kind of like, you know, like I had already learned some Ewe stuff.
Cool.
From Jerry Leek, like, because he had, you know, he stayed there for like a year and wrote a whole book about it. But it was cool to like do it in person. And
of course.
Like learn it in the way that
soak it in. Yes, learn it in that way. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because they conceive of it like very different Jerry Lee, who had it like written out.
Yes,
You know?
exactly.
And
Totally.
sometimes, at least for someone that grew up here, like in some ways it was a struggle to like learn it in their way.
Of course. Yeah.
Because like, I remember sometimes people would come in with the cowbell part. So I was learning like these pieces that were for a percussion ensemble, that like they had some different instruments, but mostly it was like a cowbell thing. They call it something else, I forget, like a shaker. And then like this little drum called a kagan, and then a bigger drum and a bigger drum. And then like the biggest drum was usually like the lead instrument.
Okay.
Like the most bassist one. And
cool.
And but I remember like when I was there was like the cowbell player would like sometimes not come in on the first, what I thought of as the first beat.
Okay.
And not always the same one. Like it was just like the cowbell was like going in the universe.
Yeah.
And they were just like chiming in.
Cool.
Like couldn't have like the same concept of like downbeats and upbeats.
Yeah.
It was just more just like a equal cycle of all the whole rhythm.
Cool.
So they'd come in and I'd be like, whoa, like where, like,
where are we now?
Orient yourself.
Right.
You'd hear the whole thing upside down.
Yeah, exactly. It turns around the whole phrase. Because then because you're like, we're thinking in the, like here's the repeat is here and this is this long of a phrase. And we're playing over the bar line here. And it's like, no.
Yeah. And I think like, what was like different about me from someone like Jerry Leek is, he was very like, I'm going to learn this stuff. And I mean, it's amazing. Without him, it would have been different. But like, for me, like, I was always trying to like internalize it more in my own way.
Yeah.
And not necessarily as worried about like getting like, like basically my impression of it being like as important as what they're trying to teach me. So it's a little like maybe disrespectful.
Well,
but also maybe more respectful because it's more of like a collaboration and a melding of stuff than just being like a Western person trying to like
notate it all and like
or just like trying to like learn exactly what they mean, and not to knock that. I mean, that's so cool to like
for sure
learn the tradition, but I was less interested in that. And so what ended up happening was I just started like writing songs with the rhythms kind of at first as like a way to learn them.
Right. Totally. Work with them.
Exactly. So then I ended up going back and meeting this guy named Holter Harper, who is a guy from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
He used to play with a great guitar player, and man, he used to play with Rusted Root, was doing all kinds of like Fulbright stuff, and he was getting like grants to go to Ghana to like make a recording studio. And then when he was there, like these like rich Ghanaians would like hire him to also like make recording studios in there. He basically went to Ghana and like set up a bunch of recording studios.
Sweet.
And we met him over there.
Yeah.
And I was with Bridget the second time, Bridget Carney, who's also playing on Sunday. I'm like opening for her.
Cool.
What will be next Sunday? Well, the immediate Sunday for you.
Yes. For you, the listener.
And then he introduced us to some other people.
Cool.
Including this guy, Steve Atambire, which was like, very drastically different stuff than Ewe music because there's so many different cultures in such small area. Yeah. And he was from the Northeast, which was like very remote, and it was more like like desert feel stuff where it's like in between the cracks of the field, where it's like there's something about the Ewe stuff that was like, some of it was not some of it was in the cracks, but like most of it felt like you could write it out in standard like notation.
There was
because
more of a grid to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas this other stuff is like, the farther north you get, the more
cool,
like kind of Moroccan.
Yeah.
Tenariwen, like kind of like you get. And so in the northern part of Ghana, that's like, it kind of became that. And also the more Muslim, like the southern part of Ghana is like very Christian.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know, a lot of the kind of more traditional religions and stuff kind of happen alongside, like they meld them together. This is all like a bastardization of all this stuff. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but a little bit I do. But then when you get to the north, it's like the music changes and also the religion kind of change. Like there's more and more mosques.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then eventually changes to French.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're speaking their own languages, which there's like lots of different kinds. But yeah, Steve-O is this amazing musician that plays this like 2-string instrument called the kalogo. Cool. And it's like,
cool name.
Everything is just 5 notes or whatever.
Sweet. Awesome.
Like total, and it's kind of like a banjo, but with 2 strings.
Okay. Right on.
And yeah, then I went back a few other times too. But
so cool.
But yeah, I always feel like working with these kind of rhythms and people that are really different from me.
Yeah.
Like brings out like really cool creativeness for me, because it's like usually, you know, sometimes you work with an American person and they're like, it's 280, like we want it 7, like it's like you kind of get caught in this thing where you're like, I don't like it when people like it's almost like I like when the music tells you what it wants to be as opposed to us like telling the music what to be.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I want it to be like 70s, but like with the guitar part from 90s, you know, like,
exactly. We
like
get so locked in
this stuff together.
Yeah, time warp.
Or you're like, or you're like, oh, you write a song and like, oh, the melody is like too much like something else, or like, you know, like, but like when it's me collaborating with these different cultures, it's like immediately what I bring to the table and what they bring to the table are so like different, and it's like you're like, I've never heard anything like this before, and suddenly you're free to like just do whatever the fuck you want, which is what I want to do always.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like I don't want to come into a session really with like an idea of what it should be.
Right. Yeah.
Like as much. Like I want the instruments to tell us.
Yeah, cool. I love that.
Like, you know, I want the part on the supro to be the high part, because, not because you're like, I'm thinking of a high guitar part, but more because you pick up that instrument, like this is the register that fits in the song or something like that.
Totally.
But it's okay. It's not like, I get it. You know, I mean, especially like people, if they're collaborating with me and it's their record, like, you know, it's okay, everybody. You can want it to be something, you know, and also they want it to be themselves, you know,
for sure.
But it's just, when you get free when you're collaborating with like these like things that are so different from what I'm used to. Like, you know, I've been working with this Pakistani singer.
Cool.
And the melodies are just so crazy, and then also like I harmonize them in a way that I think is like, you know, more from like the American folk tradition or something, you know, with like with or whatever, you know, I'm doing. Feels like their music is like a lot of the melodies are like interesting enough to work without any chords.
Cool. Love that.
So when I put like even some simple chord changes on there, even if the melody like goes out of the chord or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, I guess it's just easy to like, coming from the folk tradition. It's like, like growing up, it's like people don't care very much about originality. In fact, in some ways it's frowned upon.
Yeah, totally. That's why
like it's like, so people are just like, if it's unique, it's like feels more accidental. And so I don't know. I feel like I like push back against sometimes when people are too focused on being original and they don't want to just make something good. But at the same time, it's like when it happens naturally, like I like it.
Yeah.
It's like I like being original, but I don't like to like try to be original.
Yeah. I
like when it just is like this is
Yep.
what happened.
Yep. Exactly. The new combinations.
I've never heard anything like it.
Exactly.
And that helps when you're kind of working with people that it's not their fault, but they're like totally different, as opposed to like it's not their fault, but we're coming from the same.
Yeah.
I like doing a lot of different stuff. So I'm not saying I don't want to do.
I know what you're saying.
Things.
I know what you're saying, but like, I mean, there's so many. Like a good example is I've had a lot of records that I've only recorded on SM7B, and when you add a bunch of SM7Bs on top of each other, now you're adding the same frequency spectrum, the same resonances, the same thing. It just kind of stacks. It has a certain sound, but it's like, no, you don't always just want a bunch of that same sound. That's why it's good to get some other microphones and be able to like reach for different toolkits. Same thing with like collaboration. We have these resonances, we have these things, these histories, the Great American Songbook at writ large or whatever, and those things can resonate and add on to each other. But sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes like I've got enough of that in me. Let's see what else we can bring and see what other new territory we can chart through the unique combination. So I'm with you. I feel that deeply.
And also like when you do like, I did 2 records with this Pakistani singer named Zabe. She's going to release it, I think, as a double record.
Cool.
It's her first release.
That's ambitious.
She lives in Lahore. She lives in Lahore.
Cool.
In Pakistan.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that also, it's like, then you come back to working with someone, from here, and you have a fresh approach, like it's like, if I did too much of Pakistani music, then maybe that would start to, like be less inspiring. But at least for now, like she sings with these like the craziest melodies that just every time she opens her mouth, it's like,
cool.
What the fuck?
I love it.
This is crazy.
I love it, man. That's awesome. I'd love to talk about your recent work producing Maya Hawke. Love to kind of hear a little bit about that.
So I don't know. It's been a cool ride to kind of work with like this amazing person and lyricist and singer, and just like she's so inspiring just in terms of her like work ethic. Cool. Like I think people from the film industry like they think that all musicians are like lazy fucks. Because I think like they're like they work like 16-hour days, like 20 days in a row, and like, and they're like, what? Like you only want to work for 6 hours? And I think I have I can like I have a focus that I can turn on where sometimes like if I'm alone on a computer, like I'll look up from the screen and it'll be 8 hours later.
Yes, totally.
And I'll be like, oh shit, I didn't eat today or whatever. And yeah, I mean, so it was cool to have someone that like kind of matched that intensity.
Yes.
Of me. And I also kind of put together, like introduced, like, I mean, people knew each other. Some people knew each other, some people didn't, but I feel like I kind of planned out this thing, and it kind of like, I feel like, when you set out to work with people on a record and you're like the producer or whatever, like there's kind of like you know, sometimes you get someone comes in and they're like, they don't care that much or whatever. And that can be fine. Like they're great musicians. They can come in and like do something great without like, but maybe they leave early or what,
Yeah.
or whatever. Excuse me.
Bless you.
So in this case, it was like everyone involved kind of became so excited and like, it was like putting pop rocks into like a, can of Pepsi or whatever, like where I kind of like set this thing up that exploded, in a way I could have never imagined. And, a lot of what happened, I think, was because of these other people, Christian Lee Hudson and Will Grave.
Yeah.
Maya and Christian hadn't met, so I kind of
Cool.
introduced them and had them write together. And then, Will and Maya already knew each other. We knew each other kind of at the same time.
Cool.
And we kind of like and Will went to NEC with me. And nice. I guess, it was just a crazy ride where everyone was like so excited. Yeah. And it's almost like I set up this situation and then it kind of like started
love it
doing its own thing. And I was like, okay, like, sometimes I had to like leave the studio to like let everything happen without
totally
being like, without being like frustrated that I didn't have anything to do.
Well, dude, I mean, that's such a powerful, like, that's the ideal place to be as a producer. Is like if you could build the situation that it creates its own inertia, and you're not having to like push this thing up the mountain, and it starts to build, and then you can shape it. Like that's some high level stuff right there, man.
Yeah, and I had to like, check some preconceived notions of what role I was going to play in the thing, because and it's very emotional, but it was a cool ride, and I wrote one of the first two songs me and her wrote before we even like thought about making a record or anything. Was Therese.
Cool.
And it's been a wild ride with that song. Absolutely. We played it on Jimmy Fallon
amazing
this year, and it's got like 20 million streams or something.
So sick.
And it's been cool to been just lucky, and also she's just like an incredible person to hang out with and talk with and make music. And and she's like, she's really inspiring to me. Like I feel like I'm my best self around her.
I love that. That's really special.
But it's been a new thing for me to work with someone with as many fans as she has.
Of course.
Coming into it, and it's fun. It's fun to like work on something that you kind of know people are going to listen to.
Exactly right. Already has scope.
Whereas there's certain projects where you're like, are people going to listen to this? Are people not going to listen to this?
Who knows?
I don't know.
That's my own music. I never know.
But I'm still going. but you're still going 100% the whole time.
Sure,
but
of course, it's just different. It is different.
Yeah.
I've got one last question for you. This is one of my favorite ways to kind of like wrap up. So the podcast is called Love Music More, and the section is called Love Music Why. And basically, I just want to give you a moment to just speak poetically about why you love music. Why did you choose this? Why do you continue to choose this? Why do you have those 8-hour days where you're like, oh crap, I didn't eat today? Like, what compels you to do that? Could you speak just on, from the highest level, your love for this thing?
Right. I mean, it's like kind of, I wish I had like a better answer for you, but I guess like I kind of grew up around a lot of instruments and like just have all, I had a 4-track when I was little and would be recording like writing and recording songs like at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it didn't really feel like there was any like choice about it ever.
Cool.
I just kind of like continued doing the same thing, and it's so rewarding. But also sometimes I feel like I'm like a indentured servant to like doing it because it's like I can't stop and it's my job and I love it so much. But it doesn't feel like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like I have that much of a choice on the matter. But it's, I feel really lucky to what it's done for me and that I get to like wake up in the morning and go to the studio and feel like this passion.
Yeah.
Because I know not everyone is able to experience that in this life, like just such a deep passion for anything. And I don't know. I guess the question is, why do I love it? It's like, I don't know. I just do it.
Yeah.
And then it brings me joy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like what do other people answer?
It's all over the map. That's part of the reason why I like asking it. Because I feel like it's like asking somebody like, what is freedom? I always get wild answers when I ask people that. I'm fun at parties.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I'm just like, it's just more like breathing or something like, like, why do you
love like, breathing? Yeah.
Why do you love breathing?
Yeah.
And you're kind of just like, because you can't not.
Can't not. Yeah, exactly.
You can't.
That's a good.
You're like, it does feel good, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But it's interesting. I feel like I'm walking behind this family and there's like weed smoke, and I feel like everyone's like, where's it coming from?
Like it's
or maybe not. Maybe it's them. I don't know. But basically, like why do you love breathing? And you're kind of like, I guess I love breathing. I can't not breathe.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to like remember to breathe. I guess that's different from the music, but
well, I mean, I resonate with the idea of like when you stop making music for a while, it does kind of feel like you're holding your breath. It doesn't feel like you're like, at least from where I'm at, it hurts me. Right.
Yeah. Well, man, it was a pleasure talking with you. And again, the 12th.
Yes.
Friday, new song called No Need to Reply. Link in the bottom.
Yes, in the bottom.
Of the thing. And Sunday at Altamira Studios, kind of like a house concert in a recording studio. So
right on. Love it.
The address, you need to give the address via email or whatever.
Should they reach out to you on IG or something? Or what's the?
Yeah. DM me on IG, Benjamin Lazar Davis.
Cool.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
February 22nd at the same place. My band Cuddle Magic.
Yes.
Is playing. Thank you. Like,
it's fine.
I feel like we've been trying to make this happen for a long time, and I'm really
glad.
Enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it too. So thank you, man. And I'm really excited for the song. I got it pre-saved, so it'll be hitting my
sick.
playlist. So yeah, really
Okay,
appreciate
amazing.
it. All right, have a great rest
Thank
of your day.
you.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.